The first sign my wife was stealing from me wasn't a missing dollar. It was a police officer asking me whether I had somewhere else to sleep. I was 39, standing beside my truck outside a 24-hour pharmacy in Fort Collins, Colorado, when Officer Ryan Keller handed back my license and told me not to return to my own house that night. I'd stopped because I recognized my wife's SUV in the parking lot. She'd told me she was spending the night with her cousin in Boulder. Instead, she'd been sitting in another car with a man I couldn't see clearly. Ryan had responded because somebody reported the two vehicles blocking the loading lane. He ran their IDs, spoke to them, then came over to me after recognizing my name. "You own Northline Collision?" "Yeah." He glanced toward my wife's SUV. "My mom brought her Camry to you about 4 years ago." I remembered the car. I didn't remember him. Then his voice dropped. "Mr. Dawson, I'm going to tell you something I probably shouldn't. Don't confront your wife tonight." "Why?" "The guy she's with has been asking questions about your businesses." I looked toward the other car. "Who is he?" Ryan hesitated. "Evan Rourke." That name I remembered. I'd fired Evan 6 years earlier for stealing parts and selling them online. Ryan looked me directly in the eye. "He told someone you're about to lose everything. He also has pictures of documents from inside your office." Then my wife stepped out of the other car and started walking toward us. Ryan immediately changed his tone. "Just get that taillight handled, sir." My truck didn't have a broken taillight. I understood. And when my wife smiled at me and asked what I was doing there, I smiled back. Because whatever was happening, she clearly believed I didn't know yet. I wanted to keep it that way. My name is Grant Dawson. At the time, I owned 2 collision repair shops and a smaller mechanical shop north of Fort Collins. I didn't build an empire. I fixed cars. I started with 1 rented bay when I was 26, worked stupid hours for years, and eventually became the guy local insurance adjusters called when they wanted a repair done correctly instead of cheaply. My wife Lauren had been there through most of it. We'd been married 13 years. She'd watched me sleep on a couch in the first shop because I couldn't afford both an apartment and another employee. When the second location opened, she handled payroll for 6 months. When my dad died, she basically ran our home while I dealt with everything. That's what made what Ryan said difficult to process. Evan wasn't some random guy. Lauren knew exactly why I'd fired him. She'd been the person who told me not to press charges. "He's 30, Grant. Let him learn from it." Apparently he'd learned something. Just not what we'd hoped. Lauren walked over, carrying her purse. "What's going on?" "Nothing. Ryan thought my taillight was out." She glanced at my truck. "Is it?" "Apparently not." Ryan gave her a professional nod. Then he got back into his cruiser. Lauren looked toward the pharmacy. "What are you doing here?" "Headache." That part was actually true. "What about you?" There was maybe half a second before she answered. "Getting something for Melissa." Melissa was her cousin. The cousin she supposedly was already staying with in Boulder. Fort Collins to Boulder isn't exactly across the street. I looked toward the dark sedan. "Who's that?" Lauren didn't turn around. "Guy from work." Lauren worked 3 days a week doing bookkeeping for a commercial landscaping company. "What does he need?" "He gave me a ride." "In your car?" She finally looked at me. "Grant, why are you interrogating me?" There it was. A perfectly reasonable question transformed into an accusation. I shrugged. "I'm not." She relaxed slightly. "I'm exhausted. Can we do this tomorrow?" "Sure." She kissed my cheek. I smelled a cologne I didn't own. Then she got into her SUV. The sedan pulled away first. I watched its Colorado plate long enough to memorize it. I didn't go home. I drove to a Hampton Inn near the interstate, checked in, and sat on the edge of the bed with my laptop. First, I searched Evan Rourke. His public life wasn't impressive. Contract sales, used motorcycles, a short-lived detailing company, a business consulting page containing several paragraphs that managed to say absolutely nothing. Then I searched the license plate. I couldn't access DMV records, obviously, but the car appeared in an old marketplace listing. Seller, Evan Rourke. Good enough. At 12:41 a.m., Lauren texted, Melissa finally fell asleep. Staying here? Love you. I stared at it. Then called Melissa. She answered after 5 rings. Grant? Sorry, did I wake you? Kind of. I was checking on Lauren. Silence. Not long. Long enough. Lauren? Yeah. Another pause. I haven't seen Lauren since last month. That was the moment everything became real. Not the cologne. Not Ryan's warning. Not Evan. The ease of the lie. Lauren hadn't created an excuse tonight. She had an established system. How long has she been using you as an alibi? Melissa sounded horrified. I don't know. Don't call her. I won't. Please. Grant, what's happening? I don't know yet. That was true. The next morning I called my attorney, Nora Ellis. She'd handled leases, employment issues, and the purchase of my second shop. When I explained the situation, she interrupted me twice. Do not move money. I wasn't planning to. Do not hide assets. Okay. Do not install illegal surveillance, access accounts you aren't authorized to access, threaten anybody, or start pretending you're in a crime movie. Despite everything, I laughed. You've had this conversation before. Divorce makes middle-aged businessmen surprisingly creative. Then she became serious. What do you know for certain? My wife lied about where she was. Good. Not good, but factual. An officer told me she's involved with a former employee who's apparently been asking about my companies. That's hearsay, unless he gives a statement. And the guy has pictures from my office. Again, we document. We don't retaliate. That distinction would become important. Nora recommended a licensed private investigator named Luis Mendoza. By noon, I was sitting in his office. Luis was probably 50, wore reading glasses on a cord, and looked more like somebody's high school history teacher than a private investigator. I liked that. People expecting detectives to look like detectives probably noticed them. I gave him Evan's information, Lauren's schedule, the dates she'd supposedly stayed with Melissa. Then I gave him one rule. Nothing illegal. Luis nodded. That's usually the rule. I mean it. Good. Makes my invoices easier to explain in court. I went home around 3. Lauren wasn't there. I walked directly into my home office. Nothing looked disturbed. My desk was clean. File cabinet closed, safe locked. I opened it. Emergency cash was there, passports, property deeds, backup drives. Then I noticed the business binder. I kept original operating agreements and insurance documents inside. The pages weren't in the order I used. Most people wouldn't notice. I did. I checked the small security camera above the bookshelf. I'd installed it after a contractor stole a watch from our house 2 years earlier. The footage stored locally. I went back 3 weeks. Nothing. Then 11 days earlier, at 1:17 in the afternoon, my office door opened. Evan walked in. Lauren followed him. I stopped breathing for a second. She went straight to the safe, entered the combination, opened it, then left the room. Evan stayed for 23 minutes. He photographed tax returns, insurance documents, shop ownership records, bank statements, He plugged something into my desktop computer, then opened the emergency envelope containing $12,000 in cash. He counted it, took $4,000, put the rest back. Before leaving, he picked up a framed picture from my desk. Lauren and me at Yellowstone. He stared at it, smiled, then put it face down. That tiny gesture bothered me more than the money. The theft was practical. The picture was personal. I copied the footage onto 2 drives. One went to Nora. One went into a safe deposit box. Then I called Luis. I have something. He watched the video that evening. When it ended, he didn't say anything for a few seconds, finally. You fired this guy? 6 years ago. For stealing. Luis looked at me. Then this isn't starting with your wife. What do you mean? Look at how comfortable he is. He replayed the footage. Evan didn't search. He knew where things were. He came into that room knowing what he wanted, Lauren had told him. Maybe shown him. Maybe photographed things herself. Luis pointed at the USB device. I'd have your computer examined. I did. The next morning, an IT security company found remote access software hidden on it, installed 11 days earlier. Same day Evan entered my office. Someone had been able to access files, saved browser sessions, and possibly passwords. I changed everything. Banking, email, business systems, cloud storage. Then I notified my banks and accountant that unauthorized access was suspected. That was when we found the first missing money. Not $4,000, $86,500, spread across 7 transfers over 9 months. Amounts small enough that I hadn't noticed them individually among normal business expenses. Each transfer had descriptions that looked legitimate: equipment deposit, vendor retainer, property maintenance. The destination companies sounded legitimate too. Except none of them existed. My accountant, Dale, pulled everything. By 6 that evening, $86,500 became $143,000. Then $191,000. Lauren had access to one business account because she'd helped with bookkeeping years earlier. I'd never removed her. That was on me. Trust isn't an accounting control. I learned that one late. Luis called around 8. I found Evan. Where? Apartment in Loveland. Lauren there? No. Anything else? Yes. He'd spent the day tracing businesses connected to the transfer accounts through public filings. One LLC led to another. That one led to a rental property. Then another. Eventually, Luis found a townhouse purchased 8 months earlier. Owner, UNR Holdings LLC. Registered. Organizer, Lauren Dawson. I sat silently. How much? Purchase price was $318,000. With my money? Looks like at least part of the down payment. Who lives there? Luis paused. Evan. Of course. My wife hadn't just been sleeping with a former employee. I'd apparently helped buy him a house. Lauren came home at 9:30. I was making coffee. She dropped her purse on the counter. You're drinking coffee now? Long day. She kissed my cheek. Mine too. I looked at her. 13 years. I wondered how many lies I'd heard without recognizing them. She opened the refrigerator. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Melissa wants me to come down again Saturday. I almost admired it. Not the betrayal. The confidence. Everything okay? She's having problems with Brian. Brian was Melissa's husband, as far as I knew. Brian's biggest current problem was deciding whether to buy a fishing boat. That's rough. Yeah. Lauren closed the refrigerator. Then she looked at me. Something wrong? No. You seem weird. Just tired. She studied me for another second. Then her phone buzzed. She immediately turned it face down. There it was. A behavior I'd probably seen 100 times. Now I understood what it meant. The following afternoon, Luis called again. This time his voice was different. Grant, are you sitting down? What did you find? I've been looking into Evan's financial history. And? He's not building a future with Lauren? I frowned. What does that mean? He's building an exit. Luis emailed me 3 documents. The first showed Evan had opened an account in Nevada. The second connected him to a company registered in Wyoming. The third was a lease application for a furnished house outside San Jose, Costa Rica. 6 months, paid in advance. Move-in date, 3 weeks away. Tenant, Evan Rourke. No Lauren. I stared at the screen. So he's leaving her. Looks that way. Does she know? I doubt it. Then Luis sent one more file. A loan application Evan had submitted using the townhouse as collateral. The townhouse Lauren apparently believed they owned together. Loan amount, $220,000. The application listed Evan as sole beneficial owner. He was stripping equity from the property before leaving. My wife had been stealing from me to build a future with a man who was quietly stealing from her. There was a certain symmetry to it. I didn't enjoy it, but I noticed. Then Luis said, "There's one more thing." What? Lauren took out a life insurance policy. I stopped. On herself? No. Luis paused. On you. I didn't say anything. How much? $3 million. My throat went dry. Beneficiary? Lauren. That makes sense. Primary beneficiary, yes. I caught the wording. Who's secondary? Luis answered. Evan Rourke. I looked toward the kitchen, where Lauren was humming while unloading groceries like we were still an ordinary married couple. And for the first time since Officer Keller warned me not to go home, the affair stopped being the thing I was most worried about. I didn't ask Lauren about the insurance policy. That was the first thing Nora told me when I called. Do you know when she bought it? About 7 months ago. Did you sign anything? I remember doing a medical exam for additional coverage. So you knew there was a policy. I knew there was supposed to be a policy. I hadn't paid much attention because we'd discussed increasing coverage on both of us after I opened the third shop. If I died, Lauren would inherit businesses with debt, payroll, leases, and 31 employees depending on them. $3 million wasn't automatically suspicious. Evan being the backup beneficiary was. I never agreed to that. Then we obtained the original application, Nora said. Quietly. Can we cancel it? Eventually. First, I want to know exactly what was submitted. I looked through the glass doors toward our backyard. Lauren was outside throwing a tennis ball for our dog, Cooper. She looked normal. That was becoming the strangest part. There was no evil version of Lauren walking around my house. She still reminded me to take allergy medicine. Still bought the coffee I liked. Still complained when I left work boots near the mudroom door. Apparently people can plan a second life while maintaining the first one surprisingly well. Luis spent the next 4 days documenting everything. I went to work. Lauren went to work. We ate dinner together. I didn't suddenly become colder because that would have told her something had changed. If anything, I became more attentive. Not romantically, observationally. Once you stop trusting somebody, ordinary conversation becomes incredibly informative. On Tuesday night, I mentioned that one of my shops needed a new frame machine. Expensive? About 90 grand. Her fork paused. Do you need it now? Probably. Maybe wait. Why? Economy. I nearly smiled. Lauren had never once expressed an opinion about the collision repair equipment market. I'll think about it. She nodded. 20 minutes later, Luis texted me. Evan just received a call from Lauren. He didn't know what they discussed. He didn't need to. I mentioned spending money. Lauren immediately warned the man helping her steal it. That was useful. The next morning, I met Dale before the shops opened. We reviewed every account Lauren had ever touched. The total reached $247,300. Not all of it was recoverable. Some had paid property taxes on the townhouse. Some had gone toward Evan's vehicles. Some disappeared through cash withdrawals. Then Dale found something different. A recurring payment of $2,850 every month for 11 months. What's that? He opened the transaction details. A storage company in Loveland? That's one expensive storage unit. It wasn't one. Lauren had rented 4 climate-controlled units under an LLC. I called Luis. By lunchtime, he had photographs, furniture, boxes, appliances, artwork, things I recognized. Not from our current house. From our plans. 2 years earlier, Lauren and I had talked about buying land west of town and building something smaller once I stopped working 60-hour weeks. She'd saved pictures. Dining tables, bedroom furniture, patio sets. At some point, she'd started buying those things. Just not for a future with me. Luis followed Evan to the storage facility that afternoon. Evan spent 40 minutes inside, then drove directly to the townhouse. Lauren arrived 20 minutes later. I didn't watch them personally. I didn't need that image. Luis documented her car. Times, locations. That was enough. She stayed 3 hours. When she came home, she told me she'd gone to Target and then had dinner with a coworker. She even brought home Target bags, laundry detergent, paper towels, dog treats. I looked at those bags and realized she'd probably stopped there specifically to manufacture evidence for the lie. That level of planning bothered me more than spontaneous cheating would have. This wasn't somebody losing control. Lauren had built routines around deceiving me. The insurance company sent Nora the policy file Thursday. She called me immediately. Grant, we have a problem. I drove to her office. She had the application printed on her desk. My signature appeared on page 7. It looked real. But the electronic verification came from an email address I'd never seen. grant.dawson.co@gmail. Mine was completely different. The application listed the same phone number I'd used for years, except the final 2 digits were reversed. Close enough to look accidental. Far enough that verification calls wouldn't reach me. Then Nora showed me the beneficiary amendment. Originally, Lauren was the only beneficiary. 4 months after the policy was issued, someone added Evan. My signature was there too. I stared at it. Can they tell who submitted this? They're investigating. Lauren? Possibly. Then Nora pointed to the witness, Caroline Rourke. Who's Caroline? I don't know. Luis did. Evan's older sister. A licensed insurance agent in Wyoming. Suddenly, the policy didn't look like Lauren casually adding her boyfriend. It looked coordinated. I asked Nora the question I'd been avoiding. Should I be worried about being physically safe? She didn't give me a dramatic answer. That's why I trusted her. We don't have evidence anybody intends to hurt you, but you have a forged beneficiary change involving a man who is stealing from you and preparing to leave the country. She folded her hands. I wouldn't ignore that. That afternoon, I changed the codes to my office and shops. I gave Cooper to my brother for a few weeks. I also moved into the guest bedroom and told Lauren my back was bothering me. She accepted that explanation faster than I expected. Probably convenient for her. Friday morning, Officer Keller called. I hadn't contacted him since the pharmacy. Can we meet? We met at a diner near the interstate. He came in plain clothes. I thanked him for warning me. He looked uncomfortable. I've been worried I crossed a line. You probably saved me from doing something stupid. That wasn't why I called. He slid his phone across the table. On the screen was a photograph of Evan sitting with another man. I didn't recognize him. Who's that? Dean Pollard. Should I know him? Probably not. Ryan lowered his voice. Dean got out of prison 2 years ago. Fraud, burglary, identity theft. I looked again. How does he know Evan? They grew up together. Okay. Dean has been asking about your schedule. That changed things. What schedule? When you close the north shop. Whether you drive home alone. Whether you still carry cash deposits personally. I stared at Ryan. Who told you? Someone I trust? Police informant? He didn't answer. Fair enough. Is asking about me illegal? No. Then what can you do? Nothing yet. Exactly what he'd said the first night. I leaned back. Why help me? Ryan looked down at his coffee. When I was 17, my dad died. I waited. My mom's transmission went out 3 months later. She didn't have the money. Then I remembered. A silver Camry. Single mother, 2 kids. I'd rebuilt the transmission at cost and let her pay $50 a month. Eventually, I stopped sending invoices. You didn't owe me anything. I know. Ryan looked at me. That's why I'm telling you. I sent everything to Nora. Her response was immediate. We're involving law enforcement properly now. No arguments from me. That afternoon, a detective named Mariah Benson came to my office. She wasn't interested in the affair. Barely interested in the stolen marital money. She focused on the office entry, remote access software, forged insurance documents, and Dean asking about my routine. Has anyone threatened you directly? No. Any accidents recently? I almost said no, then remembered something. 3 weeks earlier, the brake warning light on my truck had come on. My shop manager found a loose brake line fitting. We'd assumed it hadn't been tightened correctly after service. I told Mariah. Her expression changed. Who serviced the truck? My shop. Who had access afterward? It sat at my house all weekend. Was your wife home? Yes. Anyone else? I thought about the footage. Lauren letting Evan into the house. I don't know. The truck was still at my shop. Mariah asked us not to touch it further. A forensic inspection happened the next morning. The result came back Monday. The fitting hadn't vibrated loose. Tool marks suggested somebody had deliberately backed it off. Not enough to cause immediate brake failure, enough to create a slow leak. I sat in Nora's office, reading the report twice. Could have caused an accident? Yes. Could it have killed me? Nora didn't answer. She didn't need to. That changed my priorities. I no longer cared about catching Lauren in some perfect confrontation. I wanted distance, documentation, and professionals between me and whatever she and Evan were doing. Nora filed for divorce Tuesday morning. The bank froze. Disputed transfers after receiving the fraud documentation. The insurer suspended the beneficiary amendment. Police obtained warrants connected to the computer intrusion. Lauren still knew none of it. Not until 4:17 Tuesday afternoon. I was at the South Shop when she called. Grant. Her voice was shaking. What's wrong? Our accounts aren't working. What accounts? Don't do that. There it was. The first crack. Do what? Why is the L&R account frozen? Interesting. She just admitted she knew about it. I don't know, Lauren. Yes, you do. I let the silence sit. Then she asked, Where are you? At work. We need to talk. We will. When? My attorney will contact you. Nothing on the line. Then, Your attorney? Yes. Grant, Whatever you think is happening. I know about Evan. Silence. I know about the townhouse. Nothing. I know about the money. Her breathing changed. And I know about the insurance policy. She whispered my name. I hung up. Lauren didn't come home. Louise reported that she drove directly to Evan's townhouse. 28 minutes later, Evan left in his car. Lauren followed. They drove separately to a bank. The account was frozen. Then another bank, same result. After that, they parked behind a grocery store for nearly an hour, probably arguing. By 7, Lauren drove away alone. Evan stayed. At 7:22, Louis called. He's packing. Costa Rica? Maybe. Can police stop him? That's not my department. I called Mariah. She already knew. Apparently the warrants had moved faster than Evan expected. At 8:05, officers searched his townhouse. Evan wasn't there, but Lauren was. She had returned 20 minutes earlier. Inside, police found copies of my business records, the device used to access my computer, several forged signatures, and paperwork tied to the stolen funds. Then they opened a locked cabinet in Evan's garage. That was where the story changed again. There were files inside. Not just mine. 7 different men. Financial records, photographs, insurance information, property documents. 3 were married to women Evan had previously dated. One had died 18 months earlier, in what police had classified as a single vehicle accident. And attached to that man's file was an insurance payout. $1.4 million. Beneficiary, his wife. Secondary beneficiary, Evan Rourke. I was still processing that when Mariah called me personally. Grant, don't go home. I wasn't planning to. Good. Did you find Evan? Not yet. Then her voice became more serious. We found something else in his garage. What? A photograph of your truck. I waited. Underneath it was a handwritten note. What did it say? Mariah paused. Then read it to me. Brake line didn't work. Next time, no warning. For the first time since this started, I stopped wondering whether Lauren had been helping Evan steal my life. Now I needed to know whether she'd also been helping him end it. I didn't go home that night. I stayed at my brother Matt's place with Cooper and slept maybe 2 hours on his couch. At 6:20 the next morning, Detective Benson called. We found Evan. Where? Denver International. That wasn't surprising. Costa Rica? He had a ticket to San Jose. Of course he did. Did you arrest him? He's being detained while we execute another warrant. And Lauren? She's cooperating. I sat up. That word bothered me. Cooperating how? I can't discuss her statement. Does she know about the brake line? Mariah paused. Yes. What did she say? Grant, get your information through your attorney. I understood. Didn't like it. Understood. Before hanging up, she added one thing. Don't contact your wife. I won't. And don't contact Evan. I wasn't planning to send him a Christmas card. She almost laughed. Good. Nora called an hour later. Lauren had hired an attorney. That was smart. More importantly, her attorney had contacted Nora about arranging access to the house for clothes and personal belongings. She isn't staying there? No. Where is she? Her cousin's. Melissa. The same cousin Lauren had used as an alibi for months. Apparently, reality had finally caught up with the cover story. I agreed to let Lauren collect her things Friday afternoon while I was gone. Nora arranged for a neutral third party to be there. No private conversation. No confrontation. That suited me. Then I asked the question that had been sitting in my head since Mariah called. Do police think Lauren knew about the brake line? I don't know. That's lawyer language. It is. Nora? She sighed. I've been told they're treating Evan as the primary suspect. That wasn't my question. I know. So, Lauren could still be involved. Yes. There it was. The forensic accountant kept working. His name was Howard Bell. Quiet guy. Probably 60. He could stare at bank records for 6 hours without showing any sign of boredom, which I considered either an impressive professional skill or a medical condition. By Thursday, he'd traced most of the stolen money. $247,300 had left accounts I controlled. About $106,000 went into the townhouse. $51,000 funded Evan's business accounts. Another $38,000 purchased vehicles and equipment. The rest disappeared into travel, cash withdrawals, and personal expenses. Then Howard found a payment that didn't fit. $9,500. Sent 3 months earlier to a company called Peak Risk Solutions. What do they do? According to the website, security consulting. Real company? Technically. One employee. He turned his monitor. The owner was Dean Pollard, Evan's friend. The convicted burglar who'd been asking about my schedule. I stared at the payment. What was the invoice for? Howard opened it. Asset vulnerability assessment. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because sometimes criminals apparently invoice each other for crimes. What asset? No description. Who approved it? He showed me. Lauren. My mouth went dry. Could she claim she didn't know what it was? She can claim anything. Would you believe her? Howard looked at me over his glasses. I'm an accountant. I don't get paid to believe people. Fair enough. Friday afternoon, Lauren went to the house. I watched remotely through the exterior cameras. Not because I wanted to spy on her. Because police had specifically told me to preserve any unusual activity. She arrived with Melissa and the court-appointed property supervisor. Lauren looked terrible. She'd always been meticulous about her appearance. Now she wore sweatpants, no makeup, hair pulled into a loose ponytail. For 13 years, I would have opened that door and asked what was wrong. Instead, I watched from an office 20 miles away. She packed clothes, shoes, personal files, some photographs. Then she stopped in front of our wedding picture in the living room. She picked it up, stared at it, put it back. No dramatic collapse, no tears. Just a long pause. That was somehow harder to watch. At 4:40, Nora called. Lauren wants to speak with you. No. She says it's about Dean. That changed things. What about him? She won't tell me. Then she can tell police. She already has. I waited. And? Apparently she thinks there's something you need to know personally. I didn't like it. But I agreed to a call with both attorneys present. Lauren's voice sounded small. Grant, what do I need to know? No greeting, no pretending. She took a breath. I paid Dean. I know. Silence. How? We found the invoice. Oh. What did you think you were paying him for? Evan said he was evaluating security at the shops. I almost laughed. You paid a convicted burglar to evaluate security at my businesses? I didn't know about his record. Did you ask me? No. Did you ask the managers? No. Did Dean ever visit the shops? I don't know. Then what exactly did you think $9,500 bought? She didn't answer. Her attorney finally said, Lauren, answer if you can. I thought Evan was protecting the money. What money? The money we'd taken? There it was. Not borrowed. Not invested. Taken. Lauren had finally stopped dressing it up. Protecting it from who? You. I leaned back. At least she was being honest now. Why would my shop security matter? Evan said if you discovered the transfers, you'd move cash and records before I could prove what I was entitled to. You weren't entitled to my business accounts. I know that now. You knew it then. Silence. Then. Yes. That mattered. Not because I needed the admission, because she did. I asked about the life insurance. Lauren started crying. I added Evan. I know. He told me it was temporary. Why? If something happened to both of us before the divorce. He said the money would help with the townhouse. Something happened to both of us? She went quiet. You were planning to divorce me? Yes. How long? About a year. A year. Longer than the money transfers. Longer than the townhouse. Maybe longer than Evan. Why didn't you? I was afraid. Of me? No, she answered quickly. Of losing everything. That sentence explained more than she probably intended. She hadn't stayed because she loved me. She'd stayed because leaving honestly meant accepting whatever she was legally entitled to. Evan offered another option. Take first. Leave later. Then I asked about the break line. Her crying stopped. I didn't know. Did Evan ever talk about hurting me? No. Dean? No. Did anyone ask about my schedule? Evan did. How often? A lot. My hand tightened around the phone. What did you tell him? Normal things. What time I leave? Yes. What nights I close? Sometimes. Whether I carry deposits? A pause. Yes. I closed my eyes. Lauren started talking faster. He said he needed to understand the business. He wasn't part of the business. I know. Did you tell him I sometimes carried cash? Yes. Did you tell him which truck I drove? He knew. Did you give him access to the garage? Silence. Lauren? Yes. There it was again. Every locked door in my life had been opened from inside. Then she said something unexpected. Grant, Evan hated you before we started. I frowned. What? I thought it was because you fired him. It probably was. No. Her voice became firmer. He talked about you constantly. How? He knew things. What things? Your suppliers. Employees. Insurance policies. Property values. I looked at Nora. She was taking notes. How long had you been seeing him before he started asking? Almost immediately. And that didn't bother you? I thought he was interested because... She stopped. Because? Because I talked about you. That was almost sad. She had mistaken information gathering for intimacy. How did you reconnect? Facebook. Who contacted who? He messaged me. When? 14 months ago. Out of nowhere? He said he'd seen one of the shops. I felt something settle into place. Evan hadn't randomly fallen back into Lauren's life. He'd approached her. He already knew my business had grown. He already knew we'd accumulated assets. Then he found the person closest to me. After the call, Nora looked at me. You understand what this means? He targeted her. Possibly. Don't soften it. I'm not. She closed her notebook. But Grant, being targeted doesn't erase Lauren's choices. I know. She gave him access. I know. She stole money. I know. She forged documents. I know. Nora nodded. Good. I understood why she said it. Because part of me had already started doing something dangerous, trying to turn Lauren back into the woman I thought I'd married simply because Evan was worse. Reality didn't work that way. Two people could be guilty in different ways. The biggest development came Monday. Police searched Dean Pollard's house. They found tools, fake IDs, financial records, and a prepaid phone containing messages between Dean and Evan. Most were coded badly enough that nobody needed a cryptography degree. Shop owner leaves north location Thursdays 8-ish. Truck outside overnight. Need warning first. Then, 2 days before my brake problem, make it look maintenance. Nothing serious yet. I read that message in Nora's office. Nothing serious yet. 2 words bothered me most. Yet. The next message was from Evan. He needs to get scared. Elle will move faster if she thinks he's unstable. I stared at it. This wasn't about killing me. At least not initially. It was about destabilizing me, scare me, create problems, make Lauren believe I was falling apart, push her toward Evan. Then Dean replied, "Break is enough." Evan, "No hospital, just scare." That didn't make me feel better. You don't loosen someone's brake line with precision control over the outcome. Police arrested Dean that afternoon. Once he realized Evan was already in custody, his loyalty lasted approximately 4 hours. By evening, he was talking, and according to Mariah, he had a lot to say. Evan had approached him almost 2 years earlier, before contacting Lauren, before the affair, before any money disappeared. The original plan wasn't to seduce my wife. It was to steal from my businesses through vendor fraud. Lauren was supposed to provide access. Evan expected to reconnect with her, convince her I was hiding money, and use that resentment to get financial records. Then something changed. Lauren fell for him, and Evan realized he could make far more money by turning her against me than by creating fake repair invoices. He encouraged her to believe I planned to leave her with nothing. He showed her selective financial documents, told her the shops were worth millions more than they actually were, convinced her I had secret accounts. There were no secret accounts. But once Lauren believed they existed, every dollar she took felt like recovering something I'd supposedly hidden first. It was clever. Ugly. But clever. Then Mariah told me why Evan had planned Costa Rica. It wasn't just escape. He had been preparing to disappear with approximately $600,000. Some stolen from me, some borrowed against the townhouse, some from Lauren's personal savings, and some from another woman. Her name was Rebecca Sloan, 44, recently divorced, owned 3 dental practices in Denver. Evan had been dating her for 8 months. At the same time, he was with Lauren. Rebecca believed they were moving to Costa Rica together. She'd already transferred $180,000 into their investment account. The Costa Rica lease wasn't for Evan alone after all. It was for Evan and Rebecca. Lauren had never been invited. Mariah showed me one final message recovered from Evan's phone. It was sent to Dean 3 weeks earlier. Once Rebecca funds the rest, Lauren becomes a liability. Grant already suspects something. Need both situations closed before departure. I stared at the phrase. Both situations closed. What does that mean? Mariah didn't speculate. We're asking Dean. 2 hours later, she called again. This time, she didn't make me wait. Dean says Evan wanted to stage a confrontation between you and Lauren. How? He wanted Lauren to believe you'd discovered the affair and become violent. My stomach turned. I've never touched her. I know. What was supposed to happen? Dean was supposed to call police anonymously? And then? Evan planned to take Lauren somewhere safe. Costa Rica? No. Mariah paused. That's the problem. He never intended to take Lauren anywhere. I understood before she finished. If she became a liability? Yes. Evan needed her gone too. Mariah's voice stayed controlled. We found another insurance policy. My throat tightened. On Lauren? Yes. How much? $2 million? Beneficiary? I already knew. Evan. I stared at the wall. Lauren had helped Evan place a $3 million policy on me. Meanwhile, without telling her, he'd placed $2 million on her. We had both been worth more to him dead than alive. And suddenly I understood why Evan had never cared which one of us won the divorce. If his plan worked, eventually there wasn't supposed to be a divorce at all. Kiki 4. The second life insurance policy changed Lauren's position with the police almost immediately. Until then, she'd been a suspect who was cooperating. Now she was also a potential target. That didn't erase what she'd done. It did explain why Detective Benson stopped treating every bad decision Lauren made as proof she knew Evan's full plan. Lauren had stolen from me. She'd forged my signature. She'd given Evan access to my house, my office, my schedule, and my financial records. Those were her choices. But according to Dean, Evan had never told her about the brake line. He hadn't told her about Rebecca, and he definitely hadn't told her that he'd taken out a $2 million policy on her life. When Lauren's attorney showed her the policy, she apparently read the beneficiary page 3 times. Then she asked one question. When did he buy this? 6 months earlier. The same month he'd told Lauren they should start looking at houses together. I didn't see her reaction. I heard about it from Nora. She wants to speak with you. No. This time I think you should. I looked at her. Why? Because she found something. That got my attention. What? She remembered where Evan kept a second phone. We met at Nora's office. Lauren sat across the conference table from me. Her attorney was beside her. Mine was beside me. Nobody was pretending this was a marriage conversation anymore. Lauren looked exhausted. Evan had an old phone, she said. Where? In the townhouse. Police searched it. Not where he kept this. Apparently, Evan had built a false panel behind a drawer in the kitchen. Lauren knew because she'd watched him remove cash from it once. At the time, he'd told her it was emergency money. She'd believed him. Police went back with another warrant. The phone was there. So were 2 passports. One was Evan's. The other was fake. Different name. His photograph. There was also $31,000 in cash. Lauren stared at the table. I thought we were building something. I didn't respond. She gave a short, embarrassed laugh. I know how stupid that sounds. It sounds like what you believed. She looked up at me. That answer seemed to hurt more than anger would have. I kept thinking you were going to leave me with nothing. Why? Because Evan showed me financial statements. What statements? She slid copies across the table. I recognized the company names, not the numbers. One document showed nearly $900,000 in an investment account under my name. Another showed a property in Wyoming. A third showed distributions from a company I'd never heard of. All fake. Good fakes. But fake. He told me you'd been hiding assets for years. And you never asked me. I thought you'd lie. Because the man sleeping with you said I would. Lauren looked down. Yes. There wasn't much else to say. The second phone gave police what they needed. Evan had been keeping records of almost everything. Messages with Dean, messages with Rebecca, photographs of my documents, notes about Lauren, even drafts of conversations he planned to have with her. One note said, "Keep emphasizing Grant controls everything. She reacts strongest to feeling trapped." Another, "Don't push divorce until account's accessible." And another, "L thinks townhouse is 50-50. Leave that alone." Lauren wasn't his partner. She was an access point. Rebecca wasn't his future. She was another source of money. Dean wasn't his friend. He was useful labor. Everybody in Evan's life seemed to have a function. The criminal case took months. Dean pleaded first. His attorney negotiated cooperation in exchange for reduced charges. He admitted loosening my brake fitting. He claimed Evan specifically told him not to cause a serious crash. That distinction mattered to his lawyer more than it mattered to me. Dean also admitted entering one of my shops after hours and photographing financial records. He'd used an access code Lauren gave Evan. Again, Lauren hadn't known Dean would receive it, but she'd provided the code in the first place. That became the pattern of the entire case. Lauren opened doors. Evan decided what came through them. Rebecca cooperated too. I'd expected her to hate Lauren. Apparently she didn't. She'd never known Lauren existed. Evan had told Rebecca he was single and had sold his previous company for enough money to retire. The $180,000 she'd transferred was supposedly going toward a small resort investment in Costa Rica. There was no resort, no investment, just another account Evan controlled. Rebecca recovered about $74,000 after authorities froze it. The rest was gone. I recovered more than I expected. The townhouse was seized during the fraud case. After liens and legal costs, part of the equity came back. Several accounts were frozen before Evan could move the money offshore. Insurance covered a portion of the computer-related losses. When everything was finished, I was still down a significant amount. But my businesses survived. That mattered more. 31 people still had jobs. The shops stayed open. I could earn money again. Trust was harder to replace. Lauren pleaded guilty to financial charges related to the transfers and forged documents. She avoided prison. Her cooperation mattered. So did the fact that Evan had manipulated her with fabricated financial records. She received probation, restitution obligations, and community service. Her lawyer called it a good outcome. I'm sure legally it was. Personally, I didn't have much opinion. By then, I'd stopped needing the legal system to tell me how I felt about my wife. Our divorce took 9 months. Lauren didn't ask for any interest in the businesses. She agreed that the money she'd diverted would be considered during property division. I kept the house. She kept her retirement account, and enough from our remaining marital assets to start over. Some people told me I should have tried to leave her with nothing. I didn't see the point. I wanted a divorce, not a lifelong hobby. The last real conversation Lauren and I had happened after we signed the final settlement. We walked out of Nora's office at the same time. Lauren stopped beside my truck. Can I ask you something? Sure. When did you know? The pharmacy. Her expression changed. That early? Officer Keller recognized Evan. She looked almost amused by the absurdity. All those months? What? I thought I was hiding everything so well. You were? That surprised her. Then how? You got unlucky. She nodded. That was true. If Ryan hadn't been working that night, I might have driven away believing Lauren was helping Melissa. Evan might have reached Costa Rica. Dean might have tried something else with my truck. Sometimes the difference between discovering a lie and living inside it for another year is one person noticing something they weren't supposed to notice. Lauren looked toward the parking lot. I loved you. I didn't answer immediately. I believe you. She looked at me. Do you? Yes. Then how do you explain what I did? I don't. That was the truth. I wasn't interested in turning 13 years into a fake marriage just because the ending was ugly. Lauren had loved me. Then she became resentful. Then secretive. Then convinced herself I was cheating her financially. Then she started doing things she'd once have considered unthinkable. People like clean explanations? I didn't have one. You should have asked me, I said. I know. One conversation. I know. I would have shown you every account. She started crying. I know that now. That was probably the tragedy of it. The evidence Evan used to convince her I was hiding money could have been disproven in 20 minutes with our accountant. But by then Lauren wasn't looking for information. She was looking for confirmation. Evan understood the difference. Evan eventually pleaded guilty, rather than take everything to trial. The charges covered fraud, computer crimes, identity theft, conspiracy, and conduct connected to the brake line incident. The earlier death involving another man remained under investigation. I never learned enough to claim Evan caused it. I wasn't going to turn suspicion into fact just because I hated the guy. He received a sentence long enough that I stopped calculating when he'd be eligible to get out. Dean received less. Caroline, Evan's sister, lost her insurance license after investigators established she'd knowingly participated in fraudulent beneficiary paperwork. The whole thing spread much further than I ever expected from one strange night outside a pharmacy. Officer Keller came by the North Shop about a year later. His mother's Camry was finally gone. She bought a Subaru. Smart woman. She says you convinced her. I don't sell Subarus. She says you told her to stop repairing a 15-year-old Toyota. That sounds like me. Ryan smiled. Then he became serious. You doing okay? Yeah. And I meant it. The businesses were doing well. Cooper had returned home. I replaced my truck because I never quite trusted the old one again. Probably irrational. Didn't care. I also changed how the shops operated. No family access to business banking. 2 approvals for transfers above a set amount. Security codes tied to individual employees. Quarterly outside reviews. Dale called it responsible governance. I called it learning an expensive lesson. I heard from Lauren once after that. A birthday text. Hope you're doing well. I'm sorry for everything, I replied. Thank you. I hope you're doing well too. That was enough. I didn't hate her. I didn't want her back either. Those things can exist together. For a long time, I thought the worst thing Evan stole from me was money. Then I thought it was my marriage. Eventually, I realized neither was quite right. Money can be earned again. And a marriage that requires one person not knowing the truth is already disappearing whether anybody admits it or not. What bothered me longest was realizing how close I'd come to losing control of my own life. Without knowing there was a fight happening. My money was being moved. My documents were being copied. My schedule was being tracked. My truck was being tampered with. And every evening, I was coming home, putting my keys on the same hook, feeding the dog, and asking Lauren what she wanted for dinner. That's the part I still think about sometimes. Not Evan. Not even Lauren. Just how ordinary everything looked while it was happening. Because the night Officer Keller told me not to go home, I thought he was protecting me from discovering my wife's affair in the worst possible way. He wasn't. He was protecting me from walking back into a house where almost every door I'd locked had already been opened for someone else.